The ancient recording chamber fell silent as Commander Zixth finished adjusting the quantum resonance field. His 6 eyes, each the size of a human fist, reflected the pale blue light of the holographic projectors. 4 massive arms moved with practiced precision across the control panel, while his chitinous exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian. Archive entry 7749, he spoke into the void, his voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries. Personal testimony of Fleet Commander Zixith, survivor of the Third Galactic War, veteran of 47 campaigns across 12 star systems. He paused, mandibles clicking nervously, a habit he'd never quite shaken since returning from human space. Today marks the 500th anniversary of first contact with the species known as humans. What I'm about to share contradicts everything in our military databases, everything our strategists believe about warfare, everything our young officers think they know about combat. One of his secondary eyes turned toward a framed hologram on his desk, a group photo of his old command crew. Most of the faces were gone now, lost to battles that should have been impossible to lose. I've kept silent for decades, but recent intelligence suggests the Hegemony Council is considering another incursion into human territory. Before they make that catastrophic mistake, they need to understand what we learned the hard way. Zixith's primary eyes focused directly on the recording crystal. The humans. They don't fight like us. They don't think like us. And by the 9 sacred moons, they absolutely do not die like us. Lightning crackled outside the tower as a storm rolled across the Crithian homeworld. But the real storm was about to begin in Zixith's memories. Chapter 1. The Battle of Kepler Station, 500 years earlier. All ships maintain formation Theta 7. Target acquisition in 30 seconds. Commander Zixith stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Inevitable Victory, watching as 1,200 Crithian warships approached the small human outpost. The station ahead looked pathetic, a spinning cylinder of metal and glass barely 2 kilometers long, drifting alone in the void between 2 dead planets. "Sir," his tactical officer Velnara reported, her voice steady with confidence. "Long-range sensors confirm minimal defensive capabilities. The humans have maybe 24 fighters and a handful of orbital platforms. Our victory is assured." Zixith nodded, feeling the same certainty. The humans had been expanding too quickly, claiming star systems the Crithian Empire had marked for colonization. It was time to remind them who ruled this sector of the galaxy. The briefing said these humans are newcomers, he mused aloud. No major military victories, no advanced technology, just primitive beings who somehow stumbled upon faster-than-light travel. Correct, sir. Intelligence estimates total human population at less than 20 billion across 40 worlds. We outnumber them 50 to 1. The math was simple. The outcome was obvious. "Open a channel to Kepler Station," Zixith commanded. "Let's give them a chance to surrender before we—" "Sir!" The communications officer's voice cracked with alarm. "The humans are responding, but not with surrender terms." "What are they saying?" "It's unusual, sir. The transmission is from someone called Sergeant Maria Santos. She says, and I quote, 'Tell your commander that Earth remembers the Alamo, and Kepler Station isn't falling today.'" Zixith's mandibles clicked in confusion. "The Alamo? Is that a military installation?" Before anyone could answer, Velnara's tactical display lit up with warnings. "Sir, human fighters launching. But they're not retreating to form defensive positions. They're heading straight for us." "All 24 of them?" Zixith almost laughed. "Against 1,200 capital ships?" "Affirmative, sir." "And they're singing?" "Singing?" The bridge speakers crackled to life with an open-channel transmission. 24 human voices rose, in rough harmony, belting out something called "Born to be Wild," while their tiny fighters accelerated toward the Crithian fleet at maximum velocity. "What are they doing?" Velnara whispered. Zixith watched the tactical display with growing unease. No sane species would charge a superior force like this. It had to be some kind of trick. Or maybe, "Sir, human fighters have gone to ramming. Speed, They're not slowing down. The first fighter struck the hull of the cruiser. Dominant spiral at 17% light speed. The explosion tore through 6 decks and vented atmosphere for 300 meters. But that was just the beginning. One after another, the human pilots drove their ships directly into Crithian vessels. No hesitation. No attempts to preserve their own lives. Just pure suicidal aggression that defied every military textbook in the galaxy. Damage reports, Zixth barked. 7 ships severely damaged, 2 destroyed, 1 fighter wing completely eliminated when they tried to intercept. Sir, these humans, they're not even trying to survive their attacks. But the real shock came when Kepler Station itself began to move. Impossible, Velnara breathed. The station is accelerating toward us? All sensors on the station, Zixth ordered. What are they doing? The answer came from his science officer, her voice barely above a whisper. They've removed the safety protocols from their fusion reactors. They're turning the entire station into a bomb. Zixith felt cold dread creep up his spine. How many humans are aboard that station? 50,000, sir, including civilians, families with children. And they're all heading straight for our flagship, sir. Impact in 4 minutes. The next 4 minutes changed everything Zixith thought he knew about warfare. The humans didn't just accept death. They embraced it, weaponized it, turned their own mortality into a tactical advantage that no Crithian commander had ever encountered. As Kepler Station grew larger in the viewport, its hull glowing cherry red from atmospheric friction, Zixith heard something that would haunt his dreams for centuries. The humans were still singing. Chapter 2. The Warrior Who Wouldn't Die. Present Day. Zixith's recording chamber. Dinner. Station missed us by less than 2 kilometers. Zixith continued, his voice heavy with memory. The explosion took out 3 more cruisers and damaged half our fleet. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what we found when we landed, on the nearest human colony. He paused to adjust the holographic display, bringing up archived footage from the surface of New Harrisburg. We expected to find a broken, demoralized population. Instead, we found humans building weapons in their schools. Children, actual children, learning to construct improvised explosives from their chemistry sets. Grandparents retrofitting farm equipment into mobile artillery platforms. The display showed grainy surveillance footage, an elderly human woman teaching a group of teenagers how to turn a garden sprayer into a chemical weapon dispenser. But one human in particular, Zixith's voice trailed off. Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez, the woman who taught our entire species that humans don't have a concept of impossible odds. 2 weeks after Kepler Station, the ruins of New Harrisburg's main settlement stretched for kilometers in every direction. Burned-out buildings stood like broken teeth against the orange sky, while smoke still drifted from the remains of the human defensive positions. Zixith picked his way through the rubble, leading a patrol of 12 Crithian warriors. Their mission was simple: eliminate any remaining human resistance fighters before the occupation force arrived. Sir, Corporal Thexan reported, thermal scans show no life signs in this sector. The humans appear to have evacuated. Keep scanning, Zixith ordered. Intelligence reports suggest at least 1 human squad escaped the bombardment. They found the first body near what had been a school, a human male, maybe 30 years old, clutching a primitive projectile weapon. His uniform identified him as a colonial defense trooper. Single pulse rifle shot to the chest, the medic reported. Clean kill. But as they moved deeper into the ruins, something felt wrong. The bodies were too widely spaced, too perfectly positioned, and every single one was facing away from their advance. Sir, Thexan whispered, I think we're being watched. That's when they heard it. A human voice, female, calling out from somewhere in the rubble. Hey, bug faces, over here. The squad spun toward the sound, weapons raised. About 50 meters away, a lone human figure emerged from behind a collapsed wall. She was small by human standards, maybe 5.5 feet tall, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her combat armor was scorched and torn, and she favored her left leg. Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez, Colonial Defense Corps, she announced, raising her rifle. And you ugly bastards just stepped into my kill zone. 12 Crithian warriors against 1 injured human. The math was simple. Surrender now and you'll be treated according to galactic law, Zixth called out. Vasquez laughed. Actually laughed. Galactic law? You mean the same law that says you can't bomb civilian targets? How'd that work out for the elementary school? Before Zixith could respond, the ruins around them erupted. Hidden charges detonated in sequence, collapsing 3 buildings and cutting off their retreat. Crossfire erupted from positions that had appeared empty moments before. But there was only 1 human. How was she shooting from 6 different locations? Mirrors, his combat engineer reported over the comm static. She's using mirrors and reflective surfaces to create multiple firing positions. We can't get a clear shot. 2 warriors went down in the first exchange, then another. The human wasn't just fighting them. She was systematically dismantling their squad with nothing but an outdated rifle, some construction tools, and an apparently complete disregard for her own safety. Thexan, circle around the left flank. Can't, sir. She's mined the approaches. Jorvik stepped on something and... The explosion cut off the transmission. For 20 minutes, Elena Vasquez held off 12 elite Crithian warriors. When Zixith finally managed to corner her behind an overturned vehicle, she was bleeding from multiple wounds and down to her last ammunition clip. It's over, human, he said, training his plasma rifle on her position. You fought well, but you're outnumbered and outgunned. Yeah? Vasquez popped up from cover, that same infuriating smile on her face. Well, here's the thing about humans, bug boy. We cheat. She held up a small device, a dead man's switch connected to something much larger. See, while you were chasing me around this playground, I was leading you exactly where I wanted you. Right over the old subway tunnel, the one I packed with about 3 tons of mining explosives. Sixth felt his blood freeze. You'll die too. Probably. But I'll take all of you with me, and that's a win in my book. Her finger hovered over the trigger. Tell me something. How many more planets are you planning to hit? What? How many more human worlds, because every single one is going to be like this. Every human you kill is going to take a dozen of you with them. We're not going to surrender, we're not going to retreat. We're going to fight until every last one of us is dead, and we're going to make you pay for every meter of ground. That's insane. Yeah, we get that a lot, Vasquez grinned. See you in hell, bug boy. The explosion leveled 6 city blocks. When the rescue teams finally reached the blast site, they found 12 Crithian warriors dead and 1 human body so badly damaged it was barely recognizable. But somehow, impossibly, Elena Vasquez was still breathing. She died 3 hours later in a field hospital, but not before whispering something to the medic that would be passed up the chain of command all the way to Crithian High Council. Tell them, this is just the beginning. Deet, Chapter 3, The Ship That Refused to Sink. Present day, Zixith's recording chamber. That should have been the end of it, Zixith continued, his voice growing more strained. 1 dead human, 12 dead warriors, and a clear demonstration of their species' capacity for self-destruction. But the High Council decided to interpret Vasquez's final words as a threat requiring immediate response. He pulled up another holographic display, this one showing ship schematics and battle formations. They sent the 4th Fleet to hit Earth itself. 67 capital ships, including the super dreadnought Eternal Dominance. The humans had maybe 30 vessels to defend their homeworld. The plan was to demonstrate overwhelming force and end their resistance once and for all. Zixith's mandibles clicked nervously. What we found instead was the most terrifying lesson in human nature our species has ever received. 3 months after New Harrisburg, the blue-green marble of Earth hung before them like a jewel against the void, its single moon a pale companion in the darkness. Admiral Krathnik stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, studying the human homeworld through tactical displays that revealed a planet teeming with life. Sir, the tactical officer reported, Long-range sensors detect 31 human vessels moving to intercept, mostly destroyers and frigates with what appears to be their flagship, something called the UES Indomitable. Composition? Primitive by our standards. Kinetic weapons, early-generation energy shields, basic fusion drives. The Indomitable appears to be their largest vessel, roughly one-third the size of a standard Crythian cruiser. Admiral Krathnix almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Open a channel to their flagship. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the human vessel. A middle-aged human male with graying hair and tired eyes stood at the center, wearing a dark blue uniform with unfamiliar insignia. "I am Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Earth Navy," the human said without preamble. "You are in violation of Earth territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Krathnix couldn't suppress a laugh. "Admiral Chen, I am Admiral Krathnix of the 4th Fleet. You are outnumbered more than 2 to 1, and outgunned by a factor of 10. I offer you one chance to surrender before we begin orbital bombardment of your world." "Counteroffer, Chen," replied calmly. "You turn around and go home and maybe we'll let some of you live." "Admiral, you have 31 ships, I have 67. "Admiral," Chen's expression didn't change, "you're about to learn why humans don't do math the same way you do." The transmission cut off, and seconds later, the human fleet accelerated toward them at full burn. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "human vessels are maintaining attack formation. They're not even trying to use defensive maneuvers." "Of course not. They know they can't win a conventional engagement." Krathnix settled into his command chair. "All ships prepare for battle. Let's end this quickly." The first exchange of fire lit up space between the two fleets. Crythian plasma beams lanced out with surgical precision, targeting the human vessel's weapon systems and engines. The humans responded with primitive kinetic weapons, actual metal projectiles fired from chemical propellants. Direct hit on human. "Destroyer Fearless," the tactical officer reported. "Severe damage to their port side, their venting atmosphere." But the Fearless didn't retreat. Instead, it increased speed, diving directly toward the Crythian battle line with its remaining weapons blazing. "Sir, the damaged destroyer is on collision course with the cruiser. Swift retribution. They're not responding to our hails or warnings." "Evasive. Maneuvers!" Too late. The Fearless struck the Crythian cruiser amidships, both vessels disappearing in a ball of fusion fire. "What are they doing?" Krathnix demanded, but he was about to find out. One by one, the human vessels threw themselves at the Crythian fleet with the same suicidal fury they'd witnessed at Kepler Station. But this time something was different. "Sir, the human flagship is moving to engage us directly." On screen, the UES Indomitable was burning hard toward the Eternal Dominance, her hull scarred and venting plasma from multiple hits. But she wasn't alone. Somehow the humans had managed to cluster 6 of their remaining ships around their flagship in a protective formation. "All batteries, target the human flagship," Krathnix ordered. The concentrated firepower of a super dreadnought should have vaporized the Indomitable in seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. "Sir, human vessels they're using themselves as shields. They're interposing their own ships between us and their flagship." One by one, the human escorts threw themselves into the path of Crythian weapons fire, absorbing shots meant for their flagship. Ships died to save their command vessel. Crews sacrificed themselves so Admiral Chen could get just a little bit closer. "This is madness," Krathnix snarled. "No species fights like this." But the humans weren't finished. As the Indomitable closed, to point-blank range, her scarred hull opened to reveal something that made no sense. Hundreds of small craft launching from concealed bays. Not fighters. These looked like civilian shuttles, cargo haulers, even what appeared to be modified passenger transports. "Sir, the small craft are loaded with volunteers. Civilian volunteers carrying improvised explosives. Family craft piloted by mothers and fathers. Cargo haulers driven by teenagers. Even an old man in what looked like a recreational yacht, all of them heading straight for the most powerful warship in the Crythian fleet." Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "For Earth, For humanity. Make them pay for every meter. The Eternal Dominance shuddered as dozens of small craft struck her hull simultaneously. Each impact was tiny by the standards of naval combat, but there were so many of them, and they just kept coming. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15. We're losing atmosphere. Engineering reports fusion containment is fluctuating. Sir, the human flagship is moving for ramming speed. Through the chaos and the alarms, Krathnix watched the Indomitable grow larger in his view screen. Her hull was a shattered ruin, her weapons silent, her engine stuttering. But she was still coming. At the last second, he saw Admiral Chen on the bridge of his dying ship, saluting through the smoke and fire. The impact drove the Eternal Dominance 3 kilometers off course and left a wound in her hull that would take months to repair. When the shooting stopped, 43 Krithian vessels remained operational. Of the human fleet, exactly 0 ships survived, but Earth itself was untouched. As the Fourth Fleet limped back to Krithian space, every commander carried the same haunting realization. They had won every battle and lost the war. Because somewhere, down on that blue marble, 20 billion humans had watched their defenders die, and now they knew exactly what they were dealing with. The real fighting was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Children's Crusade. Present day. Zixith's recording. Chamber. The High Council's response to the Battle of Earth was predictable, Zixith said, his voice barely above a whisper. They declared total war, not just against human military forces but against the species itself. Complete extermination was the only way to deal with beings who refused to acknowledge defeat. He activated another holographic display, showing fleet movements across multiple star systems. 3 full battle groups were dispatched to human space with orders to sterilize every world, every station, every asteroid habitat. What they found waiting for them. Zixith shuddered. What they found was the reason I'm making this recording. 6 months after the Battle of Earth. The evacuation transport Safe Harbor drifted through the void between Kepler 442b and its outer asteroid belt, her holds packed with human refugees fleeing the advancing Krithian war fleets. Captain So. Sarah Mitchell stood on the small bridge watching long-range sensors track the approaching enemy formations. How many? She asked her tactical officer. 27 capital ships, Captain. ETA 6 hours. Sarah nodded grimly. The safe harbor was barely armed. A few point defense systems designed to handle space debris. Nothing that could stand against a Krithian battle group. Her ship carried 8,000 civilians, mostly families with children from the outer colonies. Any word from the evacuation fleet? Negative. We're on our own. Sarah looked out at the stars and made a decision that would echo through Krithian military doctrine for centuries. Signal all passenger compartments. I need to address everyone directly. Minutes later, 8,000 human voices fell silent as their captain's image appeared on screens throughout the ship. This is Captain Mitchell. I'm not going to lie to you. We've got Krithian warships incoming, and we can't outrun them. Our escort ships were destroyed 12 hours ago, and no help is coming. Children pressed against their parents. Elderly passengers gripped their seats. But no one panicked. The Krithians expect us to surrender. They expect us to beg for mercy. They expect us to act like victims. Sarah's voice grew harder. But we're humans, and humans don't go quietly. She paused, looking directly into the camera. I need volunteers, anyone who's willing to help turn this transport into something the enemy won't expect. We can't fight their warships, but we can damn sure make them remember us. What happened next would haunt Krithian strategists for generations. 4 hours. Later. Fleet Commander Velkoth watched the human transport grow larger on his tactical display, noting its obvious attempts to alter course and evade his battle group. Sir, the human vessel is trying to reach the asteroid field, his navigation officer reported. Should we intercept before they can take cover? Unnecessary. It's a civilian transport with minimal armament. Signal them to surrender and prepare to be boarded. The reply came back within minutes. Go to hell. Sir, the transport is changing course again. They're heading directly toward us. Velkoth frowned. Ramming speed? Negative, sir. They're moving too slowly for a ramming attack, but they're definitely coming straight at us. Through his view screen, Velkoth could see the safe harbor approaching at a steady, almost leisurely pace. No evasive maneuvers. No attempts to flee, just a straight-line approach that made no tactical sense. Sir! The tactical officer's voice cracked with alarm. I'm reading massive energy signatures from the transport. They've removed all safety protocols from their fusion reactors. Another suicide run. All ships, maintain safe distance and prepare to destroy the transport before. Sir! Multiple small craft launching from the transport, hundreds of them. Velkoth watched in disbelief as the human ship disgorged what looked like an entire fleet of tiny vessels. Emergency pods, maintenance shuttles, even what appeared to be converted cargo containers with improvised engines. What are they doing? His question was answered when the first wave of small craft reached his screening destroyers. Each one carried enough explosives to breach a hull, and each one was piloted by someone who had no intention of returning home. But that wasn't the horrifying part. The horrifying part was the voices on the emergency frequencies. This is Tommy Chen, age 16, for humanity. Sarah Williams, 14 years old, remember Earth. Billy Jackson, age 12. My dad died at Kepler Station. Children. The humans had put their children in those improvised attack craft. Sir, his communications officer whispered. The youngest pilot just identified herself as 8 years old. Velkoth felt something he'd never experienced in battle. Pure, existential horror. These weren't soldiers or fanatics. These were families who had decided that dying together was preferable to living under Crithian rule. All ships, do not fire on the small craft. Repeat, do not fire. But it was too late. The children's crusade slammed into his fleet like a wave of concentrated fury. Ships that had survived dozens of battles were crippled by attacks launched by humans who weren't old enough to understand what death meant. The safe harbor herself never reached the Crithian battle line. She detonated exactly halfway between the two forces, a funeral pyre visible from 3 star systems away. When the Battle of Safe Harbor was over, the Crithian Third Fleet had lost 11 ships and taken nearly 4,000 casualties. The humans lost 8,000 civilians, including 600 children under the age of 16. But the real casualty was something deeper, the Crithian understanding of warfare itself. How do you fight an enemy that considers death a tactical advantage? How do you defeat a species that will sacrifice their own children rather than submit? Fleet Commander Velkoth's final report to High Command contained a single recommendation that would eventually end the war: immediate ceasefire and withdrawal from human space. This species cannot be conquered by conventional means. They have weaponized their own mortality in ways that violate every principle of rational warfare. Continued engagement will result in the complete destruction of both civilizations. The High Council rejected his recommendation. The war continued for another 3 years, and humanity's reputation for impossible victory became legend across the galaxy. Epilogue: The Price of Victory. Present day. Zixith's recording chamber. Commander Zixith turned off the holographic displays and faced the recording crystal directly, all 6 eyes reflecting the pale blue light. The war officially ended when the Crithian High Council voted unanimously for immediate ceasefire and recognition of human territorial claims. We told ourselves it was a strategic withdrawal, a temporary cessation of hostilities pending better intelligence about human capabilities. He clicked his mandibles slowly, a gesture of deep sadness among his people. The truth was simpler. We were afraid. An entire civilization of warrior poets, beings who had conquered half the galaxy through superior firepower and tactical doctrine, had been broken by a species that refused to acknowledge the concept of acceptable losses. Zixith stood and walked to the window, looking out at the storm-swept landscape of his homeworld. The humans didn't just win battles through superior strategy or technology. They won because they understood something we didn't: that some things are worth dying for, and that a species willing to sacrifice everything will always defeat one that's merely willing to risk something. He returned to his desk and picked up the framed photograph of his old crew. Of the 47 ships in my original command, 3 survived the war intact. Of the crew members who served under me, fewer than 30% returned home. Not because the humans had better weapons, but because they had something we couldn't counter: absolute commitment to their cause. The recording crystal pulsed softly, storing every word for posterity. To any Crithian military commander who might hear this message, I offer the following advice. If you ever find yourself facing humans in battle, remember that you're not fighting soldiers. You're fighting an entire species that has collectively decided that freedom is worth any price, including extinction. Zixith paused, choosing his final words carefully. The humans have a saying: give me liberty or give me death. They mean it literally, every single one of them. And that's why, despite our superior numbers, our advanced technology, and our centuries of military dominance, we lost. He reached forward and touched a control on the recording device. End of testimony. May the 9 sacred moons preserve us from ever facing humanity in battle again. The recording crystal went dark, storing the testament of one of the few Crithian commanders to survive the human wars. Outside, lightning continued to dance across the sky, but the real storm was contained within the crystal. A warning from the past about the species that had taught the galaxy a new definition of warfare. In the depths of space, human exploration, ships continued their expansion into the unknown, carrying with them the legacy of those who had died to ensure their freedom. And somewhere in Crithian military archives, classified reports gathered dust, reports that confirmed what Commander Zixith had learned the hard way. Humanity didn't fight to win. Humanity fought to make sure no one else could lose, and that made all the difference. Author's note: